If you're looking to stay informed with the latest analysis on the stories that are shaping our world in the areas of foreign policy, national security, and domestic politics, consider becoming a member of the DSR Network. With the DSR Network podcasts, stay ahead of the curve on global affairs. Each episode across our more than 10 shows features top experts, policymakers, and thought leaders who break down complex issues into digestible, engaging conversations. From breaking news to historical context, we cover the latest topics that matter most. Whether it's the intricacies of international diplomacy, the latest in national security strategies, or the dynamics of U.S. politics, the DSR Network has you covered. Members receive an ad-free listening experience, bonus content for virtually all of our shows, an invitation to join the DSR Slack community, enhanced show notes for select podcasts, and much more. Visit thedsrnetwork.com/buy and enter code July 2024 to receive 50% off the regular membership price for the first year or first month. That's thedsrnetwork.com/buy and code July 2024. Thank you very much for your support.
Nine, 12, 10, 28, 2, 23.
This is Deep State Radio, coming to you direct from our super secret studio in the third sub-basement of the Ministry of Snark in Washington, D.C., and from other undisclosed locations across America and around the world.
Hello and welcome to the podcast. This is a special podcast because it's been quite a day, and we know that the people you want to talk to about this quite a day are our guests today. I'm David Rothkopf. This is DSR, and we're joined by the one and only Tara McGowan. How are you doing, Tara?
I'm doing excellent today, David.
Excellent. She's doing excellent. Simon Rosenberg, how are you doing?
Full of hopium, David. Overflowing with hopium today.
Yeah, we all are overflowing with opium. So my first question I will direct to Tara. I will direct the same question to you, Simon. My question is the following. Wow.
Wow, indeed. It's been a wild 24 hours, but I am also feeling really, really, really full of opium. I'm grateful. I'm filled with enormous gratitude for President Biden and what we all know was an incredibly tough decision and selfless decision that he made to give all of us the best shot at beating Trump and MAGA in this election and choosing not to run and immediately endorsing his and our incredible Vice President Kamala Harris to be at the top of the ticket. And so I leaped out of bed this morning, and I have not felt that energized about going to work as much as I love and am grateful and honored to do the work that I do. The enthusiasm was literally rushing through my veins this morning about having this new ticket, potentially, and this moment that we're in to actually really seize the opportunity and capitalize on the excitement and the hope that people feel and channel that into a massive victory in November.
That's kind of how I feel. Simon, what about you?
Yeah, look, it's heads down. The decision was made. I mean, I think when we were last together, we talked about how this was a bumpy patch and that, that the president needed this last weekend to really do a check-in with his advisors and to look at the latest round of polling to sort of assess where things were coming out of the Republican convention. And that I think we all expected that this week there would be a decision and we would just go. And there was a decision yesterday for Joe to step aside. And I echo everything that Tara said, and David, I'm sure that you'll talk about as well, just the gratitude that we have. I mean, I've been using the term American Cincinnatus, that, Joe Biden is a patriot and loves his country and did a courageous.
People love those references.
Super hard for him.
People love those references to ancient Rome.
I know. Well, I'm a Rome history buff, and so I think that I think that he did a really courageous and hard thing, but a necessary thing. in order to preserve and save our democracy and to our freedoms and our future. And I think that what was an unknown is what would happen next. And what we've learned in the 24 hours since is that the parties rallied behind the vice president. They've raised extraordinary amounts of money. I just was on a call with somebody who told me it was just reported, and I haven't seen it, that the campaign has received $150 million in new commitments, from high net worth donors, not just the low dollar donors. And that, we have a resolution, and we're going to get a VP pick soon, and we're going to have our convention soon. And I think we're going to have a really good few weeks. And I think that the Republicans are looking flummoxed and a little bit lost and a little bit out of step, and all that bravado and the momentum they had, I think, has been broken to a great degree. Because I think the final thing I'll say, David, is that I think one of the things that we just didn't know, and the thing about our business, right, is that you can have suppositions or you can have beliefs about how something's going to work, but until it actually happens, you just don't know. And this contrast between what would be a youthful and dynamic Ticket and this old crazy man, who's unfit and unwell, who wears more makeup than a drag queen, like all these things about him, all of his ugliness is going to become far more pronounced now in a way that it just simply wasn't. His liabilities are going to all become greater than they were. And I think the campaign is worried, is aware, their campaign is worried about this. And the evidence that Donald Trump now is weak and not strong is that one of the first things he did after the announcement is that he started backing out of the debate with Harris, right? Like immediately sending a clear signal to everybody in Washington is that he's a baby. He's a baby man, not a strong man, right? And so I feel really good. And I think the party will unify. And I think some folks in our family, including some people listening, are probably in shock and are still trying to process what happened here. That's okay. I mean, people can take their time, but soon we all have to come together and put our heads down and go win this election.
So, Terry, you've been dealing with Democrats your whole life, which is, many months. And, of the, Democrats are not known for, their orderliness, their coming together, their being in step, and so forth. And I would, pick up on what Simon was saying and say, the last 24 hours have been the most extraordinary 24 hours I have ever seen from the Democratic Party. In 24 hours, the president did something extraordinary. He then topped it by this immediate endorsement of his vice president. And everybody got in line in an uncoordinated way. We know it was an uncoordinated way because we know that Biden told his staff he was doing this 1 minute before he did it, right? And so every candidate who might have run against Kamala said, I'm with you. 50 state chairs, $50 million in small money fundraising. I saw this report also, $150 million of big money. That would be $200 million in 24 hours. It looks very clear right now that, by sometime tomorrow, it's going to be clearly Kamala Harris. And that, to me, that was amazing, but it all came with this energy, this enthusiasm, this sense of possibility that it's just, I've never felt that. Maybe I felt that after Obama got nominated and I was like, oh, this is a real change. That was or elected. That was a moment in American history. But this feels a little bit like that. Does it to you?
Oh, absolutely. I was having dinner actually with my parents last night, and my mom said that she actually felt like she had a physiological reaction where her body just relaxed when she heard the news. And I feel like as a party and a family and a movement, there was this sense, and it's incredibly bittersweet. But I think the relief that also we were all feeling was that we all know and understood that we were not going to have a chance of winning what will still be an incredibly, incredibly close, high-stakes race if there isn't complete unity. And I agree with you that the moment felt similar in certain ways to when Obama won the nomination, but also I would say when the party did what they did yesterday and consolidated in immediately around, at the time, Vice President Biden in 2020 after a long and complicated primary. And it was full unity so quickly because the stakes are so high and because everybody understands the gravity of this fight and this race. And the fact that now we were saying on this program many times that the thing that was keeping me up certainly at night over the past number of months was the enthusiasm gap because of the two candidates at the top. And suddenly we not only have the benefit of being able to call out all of Trump's weaknesses. I love baby man, Simon. I think you should use all base if you're not already. But the contrast is even more stark now because the arguments against him are being the same, but now we have a prosecutor. Now we have a woman of color who's incredibly accomplished and effective and has been hand in hand with this president in one of the most effective administrations we've ever had. And is also largely unknown by the American people, which we don't have a lot of time, but amazing opportunity to introduce her and her family and her background to people who don't know too much about her, especially younger Americans. And they're going to be excited about this. And that's what was missing. We were all dreading every day of this election, not because Joe Biden isn't an amazing president and candidate in certain ways, but because it was a real challenge to try to bring new people into the fold around these two candidates in the same lineup that we had last time. And now that's completely different. And it is really exciting. And I think that you need both. You need the hope and the fear and the urgency to be able to pull this kind of contest off. And now I think we have it. And I would much rather be us than them right now.
You sound like Simon Rosenberg.
I wonder how much we spend talking to each other.
I know.
I mean, I think Simon should probably copyright you. I'd much rather be us than us. I think that's kind of his. That's kind of his shtick.
Yeah.
But Simon, you've probably been talking to a lot of people. I had a funny experience yesterday because I was actually talking to you on the phone, and a little later I talked to somebody else and I said, well, I know some people, they're pretty connected. And I think Biden's going to drop out. And the person said to me, no, that's just wishful thinking. And 1 second later, he dropped out. And I was like online.
David, what did you do? It was like, so are you taking responsibility for it? Is that what you're saying?
No, but I looked frankly, what happened was I looked at the Twitter feed and there was this letter and this person said, OMG, dropped out or something. And I immediately thought of our different conversation we had. And I thought, this letter has got to be a fake. I've got to go and double check this and triple check this to see whether this really happened or not. Called somebody, it really happened. And then I said it to this guy. But when you talk to the professionals in the past 24 hours, what's their reactions?
I think it's that there's resolution and that we just have to get going, and that there had been a slowdown, in fundraising and sort of just momentum. Second is that I think there's a lot of happiness that the structure of the election remains very positive for us. I mean, the Senate polling is all still very strong. I mean, even that Michigan poll yesterday that kind of freaked everybody out that had Biden down 7 points, Alyssa Slotkin was up 3 points in that race in Michigan. And all of the Senate polling, there is no Senate candidate right now of any of our battleground senators that are behind in public polling. The congressional generic, which is this nerdy thing that we look at, which is the question of, are you going to vote Democrat or Republican for Congress? That's actually gone into positive territory in recent days. It was in negative territory. I haven't looked in the last few hours, but as of this morning, that number on 538 was one of our largest leads of the year and the largest lead since the middle of May. I think there's going to be a lot of excitement about the money that's being committed. This stuff really matters because Trump has this new super PAC with, Broligarch. I haven't said that yet. Broligarch money, which is going to, matter in this election. But I think I will tell you that what people say is that there's a degree of, there's something unknown about her, right? Like and she's got to work very quickly to start to tell her story, to put out the bio ads, because they're going to start running negative ads to try to define her early. And I think she's being asked to do a very hard thing, right? Which is essentially invent a presidential campaign from scratch in the middle of July, in a campaign that's being run by people that are not her people, right? And that, she's going to have to trust this behemoth that she's inheriting to represent her well, to tell her story in a way that they weren't thinking about 2 weeks ago, And so I think there's a lot of optimism that underneath we're in pretty good shape. The structure of the race is good. The money coming in is good. But I think that, Kamala's going to have to Kamala's got a lot of work she has to do very quickly in order to make sure that they don't get out and define her before she's able to start talking to the American people. So there's a real crunch time right now for her. She not only has to pick a VP and figure out which of her staff are going to go into the campaign and how the campaign, because she's now running the campaign, right? I mean, somebody asked me about this earlier today. The people who work on the campaign now all report back through her, right? They don't report back through, the Biden people in the White House anymore. It's a huge shift of a presidential campaign at a critical moment, right? Coming out of the Republican convention. And I also wanted to say to everybody that don't expect that we're going to have real data about what's happened here for a while. I mean, I don't think until she picks her vice president, it may even not be until after our convention, that we're going to really know where the race is. And what you should expect is there's going to be a bunch of polls funded by right-wing pollsters showing her losing by 1 million points, right? Showing Trump at 87 and she's at 5, or whatever the number is going to be. These are all going to be made-up numbers. And they're going to try to get out of as part of defining her early, they want to define her as weak and Donald Trump as strong. And one of the things that all of you should be thinking about in the way you talk about this election is that she's strong, he's weak, right? I mean, this issue of her being a prosecutor and as somebody who's brought justice and accountability to other people who've been criminals is about the worst possible positioning that Donald Trump could imagine at this point in the election, in addition to the old and young and the vigorous and slovenly and all the things that we're going to get to, the baby man and the strong woman. This issue that she has a history of putting people like Donald Trump into jail, will magnify that issue in addition to the abortion issue in ways that have to be very, very worrisome to them.
Yeah. You make a good point with strength versus weakness. I'll just tell you, I was telling Tara before you got on, I've spent the entire day talking to journalists because every publication in America wants to do a profile of Kamala Harris's foreign policy. And I've tried to, give her background and her bona fides and everything else. But the last guy I talked to, which is from one of the biggest, media outlets in the United States, was like, well, she's a lawyer. Isn't she going to be indecisive? What if there's a war with China? And I was like, and my response was, well, look, there actually is a war. She and Biden have been decisive, and the other side is supporting the enemy. And, so, it's not hypothetical. And by the way, as far as the war with China goes, 3 days ago, Donald Trump said that we should let Taiwan, sink. So, this isn't a legitimate question, but it cuts to your point, which is people will try to portray her as weak for a variety of misogynistic or political reasons. So it's now, she's been a candidate for 24 hours. Let's grade her campaign. No, she's been a candidate for 24 hours. But Tara, what do you want her to say? She's going to give a speech some point the next day or two. She's going to get out there on the road. What do you want to hear from her?
I mean, I think what I want to hear from her is what most of the American people who don't know her well want to hear from her, which is who she is as a person. I think her background, how she was raised, the stories of her parents who brought her to protests for social and racial justice when she was a child, her family, her marriage, her love story, her and Doug have one of the most wonderful love stories in the world. Yes, we need to know her foreign policy, all of these things, but she is tested and she's been an amazing vice president. And I have confidence in that. I think the American people need to know who she is as a person too. in addition to her resume and her experience and her accomplishments. And also something that I think is really important, and I am really, really excited and confident about, is that her being at the top of the ticket in this race is going to recenter the conversation around reproductive freedom and abortion. And we do know that that is the issue that has animated most Americans in the past election since 2016 to come out, crossing partisan lines in red states as well. And she is a fierce advocate, protector, and supporter of abortion rights in this country. And I think that that is going to have to be a key piece of her entire platform, as the fact that she runs the first ever gun violence prevention center out of the White House, and has done so much with this administration to curb gun violence, which is another huge issue, especially for young people in this country. These go through shooting drills in their schools every day. And so this is the issues where she is a champion of. They are the issues that we can really bring more folks into the fold and also win on. And so I think her talking about those issues and her championship of those issues, in addition to just who she is and how she came to be in this incredible historic position in her role now, and now potentially going to be the next president of the United States.
If you're loving this show, then it's clear you value unique perspectives on the issues shaping your world. That's why you should check out The Intelligence, the free award-winning daily news podcast from The Economist and its global network of correspondents. And with a subscription to Economist Podcasts Plus, you can also get access to special limited series such as The Modi Raj, a brand new show introducing you to India's enigmatic strongman, plus The Economist's suite of in-depth weekly shows on business, China, American politics, and tech, all for just a few dollars a month. Search for Economist Podcasts Plus to sign up and start listening.
Yeah, Simon, these Democrats, they're like all obsessed with DEI. They love DEI. And so the next DEI decision they have to make is who's the vice president. And for the purposes of DEI, they seem to think it's got to be a white guy. Now, I got nothing against white guys, but part of the decision seems to be based on a changing perception of what's a battleground. And I've heard a couple of fairly interesting discussions that say with Kamala Harris running, North Carolina is more of a battleground, Georgia's more of a battleground, Arizona's more of a battleground, for a variety of reasons, for groups she mobilizes. And that, we need to appeal to them as well as to the blue wall states. Can you speak to that calculus and then what vice presidential candidates would help?
Yeah, I think the reality is we don't know, David. And we don't know because there hasn't been testing done and polling done of her having just gone through what she just did, right? Which is that the Star Wars bar and freak show of the Republican convention last week, Trump's outrageous performance, the extremism of J.D. Vance, and then also what's happened in the last few days where she's raising unprecedented amounts of money. She's bringing in, the party is coalescing around her far more quickly, I think, than anyone would have anticipated. You could make the argument she's showing a lot of strength right now as a candidate that was just an unknown, I think, to voters 2 days ago, 4 days ago, 6 days ago. So I think, to be fair, we really have no idea where this race is. We really have no idea where she is in the various states. And I know about the conventional wisdom that you laid out, and which would suggest that she would want to pick a running mate from the blue wall. But I don't know. And I think having the short list, right, which is Mark Kelly and Governor Cooper, and Governor Beshear, Governor Shapiro, Governor Whitmer, there may be other people who emerge on the short list. They're all good choices. She has only good choices if that's the list. And then she's got to make the decision. Some of that is going to be based on data and strategy in the states. And some of it is going to be based on who she wants to go into a foxhole with for the next, 4 months. And who does she like and who does she trust? I mean, it's part of the reason I think Gore picked Lieberman, for example, in 2000, is that I don't think Lieberman was the choice of anyone who was working on the campaign except Gore himself. And I think that in the picking of the VP, that issue of like, do I feel comfortable with them? It really matters, right? I think it's one of the reasons Trump picked Vance. I think Vance was the guy most like him. and Trump felt comfortable with him, even though politically he didn't. And I'm not saying these end up making these bad decisions, but it is a factor. And I think all the choices she has are good ones. And then at some point, she's just got to make the call. And it will be an important early test of her leadership, right? These are leadership moments, right, for these candidates. I've started the guy that I was sort of not enthusiastic about, but I've become more enthusiastic about is Mark Kelly, just because I think the idea of having a fighter pilot, a national hero, an astronaut, the story of his wife and what happened, Gabby Giffords, and what happened to her. There's a lot of drama and power and all that, right? That is beyond just like a governor, right? That I think is interesting. So I was with Roy Cooper this weekend. I sat at a table with him on Saturday night and spent some time with him. His speech to the North Carolina Democratic Party was compelling and terrific and smart. He sold the Biden administration really, really powerfully. So I think we'll know soon, but I think it's all good choices that we have.
Tara, Mark Kelly is like sriracha. Like a couple of years ago, I'd never heard of this.
I was smiling when I was talking about Mark, because Mark is a favorite of mine too, as is Josh Shapiro in Pennsylvania. But Mark Kelly, just think about the line "moonshot for democracy." Nice. Having an astronaut on the ticket. Talk about imagination with the prosecutor. I mean, it's pretty good.
But if you had Roy Cooper in North Carolina, you could have moonshine for it.
Yes, you could, and that would speak to a certain segment of the electorate too.
Yeah, that's true. I think they would say barbecue and basketball. That's what everybody said this weekend.
Well, okay, then Andy Beshear in Kentucky. But in any event, Mark Kelly, literally 2 weeks ago, nobody talked about it. Today, he's like on the top of the list. I don't know what accounts for that, but I do think an astronaut, veteran, married to Gabby Gifford, et cetera, et cetera. It's a very compelling story.
Popular in Arizona. I mean, we can't knock that. That's really important. We could really put Arizona back on the map in a more meaningful way.
But doesn't, Gretchen Whitmer took herself out of this thing. If you want a blue wall state, that leaves you with Josh Shapiro. He's a very compelling candidate. And I saw a poll today that said people don't hate Jews as much as we thought they did.
That is good. That is good to hear. And it's very sincere. I think Governor Shapiro is an incredible governor. He also is somebody who was the only Democrat to win statewide in 2016 in Pennsylvania. When Trump took Pennsylvania, he has incredible bipartisan strength in the state and in the country, a beautiful, wonderful family. I mean, I think Simon said it. There really isn't a bad choice on this list, in my opinion, but Mark and Josh are my two favorites.
Well, those are good. I think, Simon, so we can help people in our last 5 minutes get a sort of a bit of a TikTok here. I think something like a rules committee or something of the DNC is meeting on like Wednesday. I think by Wednesday, every major endorsement will be Kamala Harris's. Most of the delegates will have pledged to Kamala Harris. My guess is that they'll then probably go for this virtual roll call to avoid some of the bullshit that the Republicans are planning. Yep. And to do that, you have to have a vice presidential candidate. So that means that's got to happen in the next few days. Is it all going to be that compressed?
I think so. I mean, I think that I think the speed in which, to your point, this kind of organically came together was remarkable. Again, I think it connotes strength, unity, forward, that we're moving forward powerfully as a family, ready to go do what we got to go do. I think people are really trying to clear the decks for her, recognizing the complexity of what she's being asked to do. I mean, this unprecedented thing she's being asked to do. And I should just note that a good friend of Tara, there was just a news report on the Twitter that David Plouffe has been approached about joining the campaign as an advisor, someone Tara's very close to, who ran Barack Obama's campaign in 2008. 8.
Tara's really like wired into the big shots, isn't she?
No, Tara's tentacles are everywhere. And, but anyway, so I think that this is all happening quickly. And I think my advice to everyone who's listening is that this kind of story about all the money that's being raised and, if there's an explosion of phone calls and volunteers over the next few days, this is a sign of strength. And it's a sign of affirmation of her leadership. And so for the listeners, if you're going to give money this over the next few months, give it right now. If you're thinking about volunteering for the campaign, go to the campaign's website, sign up for a shift of calling into the battlegrounds over the next few days. If you're living in a battleground and you want to canvass, sign up for a canvassing this weekend, right? It would be amazing if she can on Friday say, we've raised $250 million. We've had double the number of volunteers that we had. We're fired up and ready to go. All of you who are listening can play a role in that, right? If you want to send this loud message to the country that, we've got a strong nominee and the party's fully behind her and we're going to go kick this other guy's ass, you can contribute to that by what you do yourself, right? David, you often ask us at the end, what can people do? Well, there's a big do now that people can do that will really matter in the next few days. So please, whatever you can, however is comfortable for you, do as much as you can. It really matters right now.
Yeah. I want to say one thing before I ask Tara sort of that same question of what should people do. And that is, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who go, oh, this must have all been coordinated. This must have been, the Democrat, they just, everybody, they got together, everything, they moved 1,000 pieces at once in the same direction. I remember once when I was in the government, I was speaking to a very senior official, cabinet level official. We were talking about a conspiracy theory that somebody had. And this person said to me, if there's ever a possibility in the U.S. government that something is the result of a carefully conceived and executed plot, or it's an accident, inevitably it's the accident. And because things don't work that way. And I think, one of the things that has happened here is spontaneous. And that's part of the reason it's so exciting. But Tara, last minute or two, what's your admonition to our friends who are listening?
Yeah, I just want to say one thing about what you just mentioned, though, which is I'm pretty sure for anyone paying close attention the past few weeks, they saw the mess, that this was not orchestrated cleanly because we all felt it. It really just was a demonstration of Joe Biden's leadership in making the decision in that final hour. But the only thing I want to add to what Simon said about what people can do, which is, the drum I will always beat, is to share content about Kamala Harris on your social media channels, on all the channels that you are, or in your email or with your friends when you see it. I'm so proud of my team. They've had an enormous amount of content out across social media, across all of our state newsrooms, at our national channels, at Courier Newsroom. But that matters. Just reposting, sharing in your Instagram stories, or retweeting or forwarding things that you get that is good factual information, because we do have an entirely different contest on our hands now. A lot of people in this country do not know enough about her. This was not the case with Biden. We didn't have to teach anyone in America who Joe Biden was or what he stood for. We actually have a very big task now to do that with Vice President Harris. And so everybody should take that on, beyond the phone calls and the donations, which absolutely matter, especially in this early hour, but also to share and kind of flood these zones online with content and good factual information and stories and articles about Vice President Harris, so people can learn and see her everywhere.
Yeah, really, really good point, because it allows me to plug my Daily Beast article yesterday about this and my Substack from today about it. Simon's Substack has addressed some of this. Courier News is addressing this, but we all should, because as we have said on this conversation of ours for the past couple of years, you are the amplifiers. You are the media network. You are the people who will put these ideas and facts in front of everybody. And so the real power in this election, and the real power to make Kamala Harris the first woman president of the United States and to defeat Donald Trump and to save democracy, is in your hands. So we'll keep on it, and we'll keep on it in this never-ending conversation. with two of my favorite people, which is Tara and Simon. And I know they're among your favorite people too, so come back and join us. We have another perspective on this, sort of global perspective with Luce and Rosa that'll also be posting later today. And we'll be on it. These are exciting times, positive times, great times for people who share our views here. So join us, and we'll be back soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.